Today we're updating the altcoin charts, looking at whether the multi-year bear market is nearly over. We have plenty of charts to get through, lots of data to look at, along with the macro update, as this is going to dictate what happens with the risk on assets like altcoins. So don't go anywhere, hit the like and subscribe if you're one out of 4 people that haven't subscribed to the channel yet. It is your home of macro cycle analysis. However, today we're focusing on altcoins. The last time I did an update was 10 days ago. The altcoin multi-year bear market explained. I went through a lot of charts, 37 minutes long, pretty detailed. So I'm not going to do every single detail in this video just to try and condense it and save on some time. If you want to review that, definitely go back on the channel and have a look at each of those charts and the explanation I went through there. As I said in the video, you can see there at 6 minutes, I still think altcoins can go up, but it has to do a lot to get to that point of going up. The first thing I showed in this video was this chart here, about $120 billion to get to that tipping point above 960 billion. Now this chart includes stablecoins, and with the others dominance, which basically is all of the altcoins excluding the top 10. And of course the top 10 also includes Bitcoin, ETH, and stablecoins. This is now breaking. We had a new monthly close in the last few minutes, and we had a quarterly close, and we had a 6-month close. So a big close over the last few minutes. As I'm filming this, we now have confirmed the lowest monthly close in 4.5 years. You've got to go all the way back to December 2020 to get to a close lower than this. So this is for the others dominance, basically all of your shit coins out there. Still hits a new fresh low. So it is at risk of falling further, and should it fall further and break and close this month, say July, below that low there at roughly 6.45%, potentially on its way down to 6%, that could then put it at a 5.5-year low. So basically the longest bear market that altcoins have essentially ever seen. And you can see the time frame here for the move to the downside. For that low close, that's 5.5 years. But if we look at it from the peak to the current month, we're at 42 months now. So, quick maths there. We're at basically 3.5 years, I believe. Looking at 48 months would take you up to that 4-year period. So pretty well the longest bear market that we have seen for altcoins. The previous cycle there, 2017, before it got to the low in 2021, was a bit more of a trading range. So it didn't necessarily feel as bad as what looks to be happening at the moment, where this has just basically been down with a couple of minor pumps, basically getting all of the altcoin influencers very excited for a brief period of time, and then basically has come down and taken out those lows in a lot of cases. Yes, some altcoins are up, and I often see the comments, people bragging about their 1 or 2 altcoins that are up. Great. If you're making profits, actually I shouldn't have a go. You're making profits, you're doing well. But in the majority of cases, it is very well down. But this period, as I was going to measure, was 43 months. So that is getting very close to the time frame now. And that's why I've titled this video basically an update here of 10 days. I'm not saying that the market has to go up, and it's definitely not a flip from absolute catastrophe to exuberance the other end. That's essentially what you do get with altcoin influencers and altcoin traders. They're very much polarized by their emotions. We're trying to keep it nice and grounded and just following what the chart is saying. As I talked about already, I do think the altcoins can still go up. I've got a couple to cover here for you today as well, looking at one in particular that looks relatively strong over the others. And that would then lead us into that, that altcoin season, but essentially not as many altcoins are going to make it in that period, but definitely going to be taking some profits and not get too greedy. So that's a really interesting one, I think, that is coming up for July and August, potentially, where you've got this peak in June of 2017. There was a huge move to the upside. That was the time that I got into alts and Bitcoin in that first half of 2017. And that movement was huge. Then we had a second pump into 2018, so January and then May. And the main final pump there into the top was basically EOS. It was just one crypto that ran that up. Remember that in those days there was a lot less, and then it came crashing down. Basically a trading range there, as I said, for 43 months. And as you can see, to last month was 41. We're into the 42nd, and August will then be the 43rd, at which point maybe we start to see things turn around later in quarter 3 or quarter 4, which I know a lot of people are hoping for. Now, in terms of the price, so that's looking at timing. In terms of price, we're still looking somewhere, should this continue on, you've got support back down at around 6.1%. You've got the low right here. The market did go underneath it. It tested it again through this period in the first quarter of 2020, and then tested it again quarter 4, quarter 1, 2024, 2025. So 6% seems to be a reasonable area to expect some sort of support. So if this does get carried away over the next month or so, July, August, and then hit that and reverse, could be good timing, and like we do here on the channel with our analysis, good price. So looking at both there, time and price. That's the most important when you're looking at your cycle analysis. So the altcoin multi-year bear market, is it nearly over? I've covered altcoin signs this cycle is over, but of course we need to look at the opposite as well. What if the bottom is in? Success of alt season, how I want to rate if the alt season is going to be successful. I don't think a few days up like we've seen before, or a few weeks up, or in the case of late 24, we saw a couple of months, November into December, and then it was all over from that point. I wouldn't necessarily rate that as a huge success. I want to see something comparable to the previous movements in alt season. And then 3 markets for a revival. So you've obviously got signs that it's over, but then obviously you need to understand if there is going to be a reversal in that. So I'm going to start with the macro analysis, but compare it to altcoins as well, keeping it super high level and super easy to understand. So the importance here of the stock market is that altcoins never go up if the S&P is going down. That's why I'm looking at a lot of these data points to see if S&P has got a stronger year ahead. If you've been following the channel, you obviously know that my view is the S&P does have further to go, but it's always interesting, I think, to see other data points when it comes to post-election years or things to do with other cycles like the presidential cycle. So if I clean this chart up, the white bars in the background is the S&P 500. The candles, colored candles in the foreground is the others. And you can see here, when the S&P has its corrections, the altcoins are going down. The S&P basically in a tight trading range here. 2018 was a very tough year for traders, well, at least long-term holders of the S&P 500. And there you are. Altcoins didn't necessarily get a strong move on through that period. Same deal for 2022, straight down. And now we find ourselves going down, or at least the altcoins going down, while the S&P 500 is going up. So the S&P, altcoins can go down. They can go up if the S&P is going up. Altcoins can't go up if the S&P is going down. So we're definitely seeing that. We're seeing S&P 500 going down, going up, and altcoins, I think, will eventually follow suit depending on which ones. So we got strength there. We got strength in terms of the data when it comes to the cycle here for the presidential cycle. And in recent years, pretty strong move here for the S&P 500 to the upside, 18% post-election year. Whereas if we take it back 75 years, basically an 8% increase for post-election years. The next data point here for the S&P going up to 2025 could be another slingshot year. S&P 500 performance after down greater than -7%. So basically, if it's done more than 7% to the downside during the first half of the year, but finishes midpoint of the year, which we now have the data to just in the last few minutes, basically final 6 months are up. Moved into a recession, final 6 months of the year. In 1957 it did, and in 1990 it did. So that was the end of the real estate cycle for those of you following at home. But for the other times, no recession, no recession, no recession. That's 2003, 9, 2016, and as you can see here, 2009, that was after the GFC. So the final 6 months didn't go into recession. Things climbed out of that, even though it was a huge loss there, and the low came in March 2009. So just looking at all of the data points here, just summing it all up, basically it's suggesting that quarter 3 and the final 6 months, obviously quarter 4 as well, would be around 75% of the time would be higher. So 3 out of 4 times we're going to have a higher end to the year. Cycle analysis is our forte at the Investor Accelerator. So if you're a brand new subscriber to the channel, then I highly encourage you to get our latest Bitcoin, altcoin, and economic reports coming out this week. These reports will get you up to speed on how we forecast the markets and how we've been able to profit during uncertain times leading into and out of the cycle peaks. It's completely free, so subscribe today using the link in the top of the video description and you'll receive your first report shortly. In my opinion, the macro analysis is still on our side. There is still the possibility for an altcoin season revival. As for the signs this cycle is over, none of these 4 have been met. So we haven't seen the altcoin market on Total 3 or on Others D fall below critical levels. I'll check that out in the chart just in a moment, but that's the update there. 3 markers for altcoin revival. Again, none of these have been met, but that doesn't mean that it's the end. Just like signs that it's over haven't been met, we're still in that tough range of the market trading between key trading levels. So basically those lows and those highs, it hasn't broken down and it hasn't broken out yet. So there's still hope there. The markers for an altcoin revival, if the USDT dominance goes below 3.7%. The revival here, others dominant support at 6% and basically climbing above the 9%. So you want to see this chart at least hold 6%. That's what we're looking at just here with this white line at the bottom and then climbing above the 9%. There it is right there. That has been the level that twice now we've seen those minor altcoin rallies throughout this cycle of 2022 through to 2025. They are basically those 2 minor areas right there, move up and this tiny move up here, that's on the monthly chart. Ideally, we'd see that back above there. Any sort of moves to the upside, of course, are going to get a lot of attention from influencers and altcoin hopefuls, but I think it really does need to get back above that particular line, around 9%. TIA Total 3. So this one here is our specific chart that excludes the stable coins. That one there needs to be above 700 billion, and then Total 3 above 1 trillion would be the real key area where you start to see things go wild. And I would suspect that USDT dominance would be below the 3.7% if we're going to break the 1 trillion level. So they're going to be 2 very big areas there. Basically the money flowing out, this is all your crypto fiat, flowing out of the game and then into this one here. Of course, a lot of it's going to go into Bitcoin as well and probably ETH. And the last one here, ETH, above 29 and 3,800. It continues to fail here at 25 for the short term and has already failed multiple times at 27, but it's still above 21. So like with the rest of these altcoins, altcoin charts, is that they're still in a rock and a hard place because they haven't broken down to suggest that the game is completely over, but they haven't broken out yet either. Successive alt season, I would need to see others dominance move more than 11 points and basically Total 3 would be up over 700 billion. So let's take a look at these total charts before I get over to Bitcoin and then those altcoins. If you are enjoying the content and you find value from it, you know what to do. Hit the like and subscribe to the channel so that you can get these updates. And Total 3, again, 800 billion, not above 960 billion, but still above 700 billion. So rock and a hard place here. I'm looking at a breakout of these highs. And like I showed in the intro, that current price range is about $120 billion away. That's including stablecoins on this Total 3 chart. This is the chart that everyone has access to in their trading view. The TIA Total 3 would exclude the stablecoins for you as well. The USDT dominance has put in that engulfing pattern here. So this is the bearish engulfing, basically taking out all of the gains from the prior week. So that's a good sign for the altcoin bulls. Yes, we want to see that dominance completely collapse, but it's still holding above major 50% here at 4.75. Did run up 1 week, next week all the way back down. The key level, 4.4%, still remains there. Move to the downside is the same thing with Total 3. If you start to see these little moves to the upside, hitting 900, 910, 960, sort of that excitement building, but unless it breaks out, it's not going to continue. It has to break down from this 4.4%, at least according to the way I read the charts. any of these sort of moves is basically similar to last time, where you see a lot of this grind up, things are getting a little bit scary, then pop, market collapses, or Bitcoin and crypto collapse when the USDT dominance rise. And then on the way down, it's sort of, getting exciting for a little bit. It breaks down and then climbs all the way back up. There's just really no certainty here for a breakdown to give us a bull mania, or a breakout to basically shut the door on all possible bull markets happening for this cycle, the rest of the bull market. USDT dominance and USDC dominance, so the two major stable coins together, similar sort of thing. Breakdown of 6% is going to be the first sign. Look at the lows here, look at the tops here, look at the next lows here, 6.1%, and then the breakdown of the double bottom at 5%. So rounding the numbers there so you can remember them, 6% the first sign, 5% the next sign, then you can start to look at some sort of big, beautiful bull market. So that takes us over to the altcoins, starting with ETH, rock in a hard place, 2,100 holds, positive for the bulls, 29 still rejected, 27, 28 still rejected, and in the short term, 25 is still rejected. So not great for the bulls here. But while it holds 21, as long as it takes its time to keep climbing higher, there is still hope left in the game for the altcoins. My concern is if it takes too long and it breaks 21, that would be pretty bad. We'll leave it at that because it hasn't happened, but we do have some other relatively okay, stronger alts playing out here. We've got Sui. Sui in the background is trying to get back above 290. This has been a sticking point now for many, many weeks. After it broke down, gave us the 50%. So this is the low to the high, slice it through the middle. It's broken back down over the last few weeks. $2.90, $3 is the next key level to hold above before it can tackle that $4. But above that level is going to be in that stronger position. The good news here is that Sui continues to put in higher lows. If it breaks these lows at around 220, 230, that would put it into a weaker position. So again, you either sit on the sidelines and you wait for the confirmation, of course, having stops, or you try to get in early, but of course the risk is higher because there is no confirmation that it wants to go higher yet, but you've got a closer stop there. So slightly lower risk than if you wait for the highs there. It's essentially like an insurance plan. Insurance plan, you pay the premium being a higher price. Solana, similar thing, but it's above its long-term 50% from the cycle low to the all-time high. And that's only just though. So I really don't like it just meddling around with the 50% level in a long-term trading range between 120 and 180 bucks. Ideally, closes and consolidation above 180 because that was the area that it found support before it spiked into that final top, and then the collapse using our 3-bar rules, which happened on the daily and the weekly. If you're unfamiliar with this, definitely subscribe to the channel. This has helped us throughout the entire bull market find, in the case of Bitcoin, find when the market is slowing down. It's worked very, very well on specific charts. Case of Solana on a weekly, it had a sign here in November, market slowing down. Sure, you had one final pump, everything closed underneath it, and then it happened again. So this one here keeps you safe, as I like to call it, keeps you safe in the markets here. So at the moment, Solana needs to get back above 180. This low was very, very important. Those two lows there actually, and that would be the insurance plan. And to the best of the bunch at the moment, crazy enough, XRP, the yellow box that I have here on the chart is the 2017 all-time high, which ran to $3.50, but that month there closed back at $2, and then of course it opened again at $2 and then fell. So I've got two major things to look at here, time and price. We'll start with price first and then look at time. Now, the $2 has been critical over the last two cycles. We're into our third cycle, but over those last two cycles, 2017 and 2021 in April. Remember, the all-time high was November, so this peaked way earlier than the Bitcoin top. There was September and then November, which is where Bitcoin topped. That topped at $1.97. So basically call it $2 again. And then this cycle, we've broken above it, above $2. And for the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 months, it hasn't closed underneath $2. A couple of times it has tested underneath $2. It's tested the 50%, and on a longer term basis here on the monthly, it's closed back above. So at least that's some short-term signs that this is in a much stronger position than looking at things like Sol and, for the most part, just comparing these two. And the largest one, SUI. And so $2 is a good level here. $1.80 is a 50%. So again, more and more support forming underneath. The low in April came back and tested dead on the previous monthly high close of April. So that was $1.60. And you can see this low happened at, basically $1.61. So similar to what's happening with the previous 2017 top, you had the monthly close, and now we have the test again on that level, and it's attempting to climb up and close, or at least test 250 again, to get it into that strong half of the downtrend 50% level. 250 is really that key level there. If it can hold and consolidate there, much higher chance that it does go on to $3, $3.50, and I'll give you an extension here because you've made it this far in the video, $4.60 up to even $6. I'm not going to go crazy like the other ones and tell you that XRP is going to $589. There is no chance in hell that it goes to $589. You can clip that all you want. There's $589 up here. It would make everything look ridiculous, but it's not about looks, right? It just doesn't make sense in terms of a market cap. There was a lot of talk about XRP going to 589. That's pretty much impossible. Hopefully I'm talking to the sensible traders here. We're looking at taking profits on the way up. 1, take partial profits. At least get risk-free. If you entered at $1 or 50 cents and you put in $100, $1,000, $10,000, whatever it might be, $100,000, at least get risk-free on this move up so that you are left with the money that you initially put in. If you've done that, fantastic. Then no matter what happens, it's just a matter of losing profits. So at least you're in a strong position. If you're at risk-free, meaning that you've taken out any money that you put into the market on the way up, if this thing goes up, if XRP ran all the way down to 1 cent, you would still have profits. I'm not saying it will go to 1 cent, but if it did, you would still have profits provided you get risk-free. And that is basically your risk management strategy so that you can live to fight to fight another day in the markets and continue to learn and make profits as you go. Hold remaining position, exit more at next targets, whatever they might be. And of course, we discuss this in detail with Premium and how you can go about developing that plan. And then always have a stop loss for your positions so that you don't end up round tripping each of the markets, especially when things take so long to play out. And the big bad one itself, Bitcoin. As long as Bitcoin is still in a bull market, there is still a chance of an alt season. So in terms of the title here, the altcoin multi-year bear market, is it nearly over? I don't think that that's the case, that it is nearly over, but of course we're 10 days closer to it being over than the last video. And there are a couple of signs that have evolved since the last video, especially looking at where the month closed, the quarter closed, the 6 months closed on the macro charts, looking at the total 3 and USDT dominance, and also the others chart. So there were some positive signs here that the multi-year bear market could potentially be over or coming to an end over the coming 1 to 2 months, as we discussed at the beginning of the video. Like, subscribe, and let me know if you want to see more of these updates in your newsfeed. Let me know in the comment section, and I'll see you guys back here at the next video. Till then, take care. Peace out.